introduce you to Nancy Coop. She has been connected to the propane industry for her lifetime. Her father founded the bobtail manufacturing company, Jarco, in the 1950s. After his retirement, she stepped in as the company's owner and president. Her involvement in the industry currently includes serving on the board of directors for the National Propane Gas Association and the Western Propane Gas Association, in addition to being the founding chair of the NPGA's Women in Business Propane Business Council. Having sold Jarco in 2010, Nancy is now an executive at Fairgas, where she assists with industry relations and acquisitions. Nancy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lori. It has been a real pleasure to be here since last night, to get to meet many of you. Some of you I already knew, and I'm really just thrilled to be here with the New York Propane Gas Association. I'm going to stand behind the podium. I've seen the other speakers move around quite a bit, but Barb is videotaping, so if I move around, we're going to miss. I don't speak loud enough, I think, so I'll stay here at the microphone. Besides that, I need my notes. I've been introduced to you as the founding chair of the Women in Propane Council. I'm really here today as a keeper of keys, and you can see I like the key as an image for solutions, basically. I think there is a problem in our businesses that some of you may not be aware of, and today during our time together, not only will we identify the problem, we will also, and most importantly, learn about specific solutions. And those solutions have to do with improving your bottom line in a way that you may not have contemplated before. So, businesses with diverse leadership teams do better in the marketplace. I'm going to repeat that. Businesses with diverse leadership teams generally do better in the marketplace. But even so, gender balance is rare in company management in the propane industry. What can we do about gender balance, and why do we need to do something? Before we get into specifics, consider this. Is there a person in your organization who doesn't look or behave like the current senior management? Is there a person worthy of your support to become a future leader? Oftentimes when we consider who's going to lead our organization in the future, we select that person or sort of imagine that person as looking something like ourselves. So we're here to talk about thinking a little bit outside the box, because there are options now that are gender diverse. The Wall Street Journal reported that based on research, organizations that have a higher representation of women in their leadership make better decisions, they make better corporate governance, they have better risk management, and they have better returns. Profits. They are saying that a combination of men and women in the boardroom, essentially, or at the management table, results in greater results, greater profits. This is something we should all pay attention to and learn about. Another article from the Wall Street Journal cited that men are promoted on potential and women are promoted on performance, traditionally. They're saying don't wait for a woman to do something amazing, as is generally the case. It's all right, go ahead and promote that person based on her potential. If you see that potential, push her along. Just don't wait. There's no need for that. Sometimes you'll see that empty place, but somebody's left the position and suddenly you're thinking, who's my best candidate? Think harder about who is it that's really got that potential. I've seen data that indicate that the more women in a group, the more intelligent it is. On its own. That is a statement that can close down any discussion on this topic, and I want to keep the discussion open. What the data really refer to is known as group IQ. A group's IQ correlates with emotional intelligence, which is the ability to monitor one's own and others' emotions to help us guide us in our thinking and actions. Men and women will ask different questions, they will analyze a problem differently, and they will reach solutions in a different manner. In a group, by bringing men and women together, these differences raise the likelihood of producing the best results and increasing the group IQ. So when you hear that, don't think it's, well, I'm going to go on to tell you some more things about this. Because there are some specifics here that I found very interesting. Every single one of us in this room knows that men and women are different. But what are we specifically talking about? According to a study at the University of California in Irvine, men's brains have approximately 6.5 times more gray matter than women's brains. And women's brains have 10 times more white matter than men's. The study gets a bit scientific, but it does enlighten, because gray matter characterizes information processing centers, and white matter facilitates the connections between those centers. Scientists theorize that those differences might explain why men tend to excel in tasks that depend on sheer processing, while women show relative strengths in tasks that call for assimilating and integrating disparate pieces of information. The study went on to other details about brains, yet it also was very clear to say neither brain type performs better than the other on broad measures of cognitive ability, such as intelligence tests. The differences, however, have implications for how decisions are made. This next study that I ran into in my research, I found relatable. It's a 1984 study published in the Journal of Consumer Marketing that talks about how men and women shop differently. You think? The typical man is found to be mission and task oriented. He needs black slacks. He goes directly to the store, he picks out a pair within a half hour, and perhaps even buys 2 of the same item to avoid having to make that same purchase again anytime too soon. The typical woman, on the other hand, she is discovery oriented. In her same desire to purchase black slacks, she typically will approach the search with an open mind. What she really needs, she decides, is a professional look for an upcoming conference. Not impressed by the slack selection, or pleasantly surprised by something else, she readily adjusts her goal. The process may take significantly longer than 30 minutes, but it's more likely to result in a satisfying outcome. When we talk about male and female types, we're talking about tendencies, not absolutes. How does the shopper study translate to a business decision? An example is that women see a big meeting with a potential service provider. Perhaps it's insurance for your company, something along those lines. They see this big meeting as a chance to explore options in collaboration with an expert resource, while men see that meeting as a near final step in the process when they are narrowing down and choosing among options. So they approach the resource differently even. It's back to that, the difference in thinking, the shopping piece. One of the male researchers in a Harvard Business School study went on to say, women are so much more rigorous in the way they explore possibilities and evaluate vendors. It's not a stretch to imagine that there is a whole science around the concept of teaching people to adjust their behaviors when selling to men versus selling to women. Once companies apply some of these selling skills, customer satisfaction is boosted, and increased revenues give those companies an edge in the marketplace. In an LP Gas magazine survey, retailers reported that 93% of the women in their companies held either customer service or bookkeeping positions. Only 3% were in technical or driver roles. 36% are managers, and just 15% are owners. My dad, Casey Jarvis, certainly had choices when he looked for a successor to his business, York Propane Trucks. I have 2 brothers and a sister. That I was the person to acquire the business and the responsibility speaks volumes about his vision years ago to see the potential in this woman. I can promise you, I didn't have the technical knowledge about bobtails that may have been seen as a prerequisite for this job. It's important here to understand that there is a process of coming to see oneself and to be seen by others as a leader. My dad could see it before I could. And thanks to the great reputation that he had developed, the fine equipment that we built, and the incredibly warm welcome that I received in this industry, I was able to develop professionally. It's also to the credit of the male leaders in this industry that they encouraged me to get involved in industry association work. Essentially, that sponsored my further success. As much as I may be able to point out to the, point to the hard work that I did, and I did, I can honestly say that the affirmation of my male colleagues provided fortitude to step outside my comfort zone and experiment with unfamiliar behaviors and new ways of exercising leadership. One glance around this room, and we may easily confirm that ours is a male-dominated industry. It's been my absolute pleasure as a founder of the Women in Propane Council to talk to so many men in our industry who believe, as I do, that a council to help advance women in our industry is a terrific idea. I'll quote someone in this room, one of the men in this room, who recently said to me, "This makes sense." This can happen if we are intentional about it. The executive board at Feral Gas, my new employer, is all male. Yet when they set out to find a qualified representative to assist them both with industry relations and acquisitions, they were open to the idea of identifying a woman. Once I spoke to the chairman and the CEO and the COO, I knew that they saw a capable female in the role as both viable and positive. They recruited me, a woman truck builder, because they could see the potential. I don't have the clicker. Here it is. Which button?
Right.
There we are. Thank you. Taking a little switch here. You're all familiar with Casey Stengel, the great baseball manager. He is credited with saying there are 3 kinds of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who have to ask, what happened? I think I was invited here today. So, well, first of all, how many of you are one of those people who makes things happen? Show of hands. Do you make things happen in your business and in your industry? Yes, that's what I thought, all of you. There are, I think I was invited here today because I think this idea in our industry is time has come and we're going to see some changes. And if I could be here to tell you some more of how you can help to make things happen, then you will not be on the sidelines to say, what happened? How many of you are New York Yankees fans? Ooh, just not many. Oh, I'm surprised. How about Mets fans? Not too many baseball fans here. Okay. Some of the patterns in our industry that inadvertently benefit men and put women at a disadvantage can be described, and I'm just using 4 examples. I think they're pretty key examples. Number 1 is there are not enough women role models. Fewer female leaders means fewer female role models, and can suggest to young would-be leaders that being a woman is a liability. So there's an area we can think about. Number 2 is gendered career paths. Some of our organizational structures and work practices were designed decades ago to fit men's lives when women were not a large part of the workforce. Frankly, they were a very small portion of the workforce. Some of these jobs that have been traditionally thought of as men's and women's over the years, some of the women's jobs have become outdated when it comes to the kinds of experience that best prepare a person to lead. Next is the women's lack of access to networks and sponsors. I have to say, I'm really glad that I play golf and that I enjoy the occasional adult beverage. Because it is these informal networks that can be barriers to advancements if you don't have access to them. We all need access to influential colleagues. The last one is called double binds. There is a mismatch between what are considered conventionally feminine qualities and the qualities thought necessary for leadership. Self-confidence or assertive behaviors are more likely to be an advantage for men leaders and appear as arrogant or abrasive in women. Meanwhile, women leaders who have a more conventional feminine style may be liked but not respected. Business leaders send a powerful message when they demonstrate a commitment to diversity and inclusion that goes beyond empty talk. I've read stories about CEOs of huge corporations who make diversity a priority. Some of them have personal experience that underscores their commitment. Some felt it was crucial for a company's employees to reflect the people they served. At Bank of America, CEO Brian Moynihan sees it as an important link to customer satisfaction. Many CEOs related stories involving their mothers, sisters, or daughters. In fact, only 4% of the companies in the 2013 Fortune 500 list are led by female CEOs. I'll give you a few more statistics to give you a framework for that. I always thought that the balance in our country was about half and half, 50-50. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2011, there were more women than men in our nation. Still pretty balanced, it's 51 to 49%. Women earned, during that same census, women earned only 77 cents for every dollar that men earned. And slightly more women than men earn bachelor's degrees. Back to our keys. In this study that was published in the Harvard Business Review, 7 of the CEOs interviewed for that said there is no one truth as to what holds women back, but the single barrier that affects all women is exclusion from networks and conversations that open doors to further development and promotion. I guess the shorthand for this is the Old Boys Network. It's not embedded I would say it's not intended to discriminate. It's probably unconscious, but I think it's likely embedded in our industry at this point. Becoming aware of these subtle barriers puts us all in a better position to strengthen our companies by including both genders and creating that sought-after balance of male-female leadership. Let's recall what we've already learned here. Adding more diversity at the upper echelons of management also means wider diversity of thought, which in turn means better decision-making and better economic performance. We now understand here today some of the science that says men's and women's brains are different. Do women lead differently? Social scientists may not agree, but the CEOs in the Harvard study said that women were less political, more collaborative, better listeners, more relationship-oriented, and more empathetic and reasonable. Remember, these are tendencies, not absolutes. These are qualities, of course, we want in our management teams. And these characteristics, combined with the leadership skills of the men on the team, are what can give your company a distinct advantage. I think this is a good place to mention that there is an example of gender balance in the United States that affects our industry and surprised me. I don't know if it exists here in New York. The state of Iowa has a code that states all appointed boards, committees, commissions, and councils shall be gender balanced. This doesn't apply to closely held businesses, but it does apply to state boards and committees, including the Iowa Propane Education and Research Council. So that means that Iowa's PERC, their volunteer group, has to be balanced 50-50 in order for it to comply with state law. Does that apply here in New York? Does anybody know? No. We don't know at this point. I have a little bit of trouble with this. I think such a mandated program may be warranted to kick something off, to get something going, but in general, I'm not a proponent of quotas for the long term. I think we have to be wary of tokenism. If you put someone in place who fits a certain category, but doesn't have the skill set needed to do the job, then you basically set the whole agenda back significantly. So I think as Rick, who was up here earlier talking about how you need to change your bylaws here in your organization, what he said that really struck home for me is that you want to have the best people running your organization. So you want to, that's always something to be mindful of. This, you look at this boat and you're thinking, how far are you going to get in this boat? We all are, I think, probably have heard the slogan that a rising tide lifts all boats. Generally, that refers to the general economics health of our nation. But if you think of it in the terms of if that's the case, it's that all boats will rise and sink along with the tide. What about those people who don't have boats? A rising tide doesn't raise people who don't have a boat. We may have to help them build that boat. I'm not suggesting that women don't have boats, but we may be able to give them a hand with some basic infrastructure to rise with the tide. We can strengthen our companies, which are our own boats, in preparation for the rising tide. I suggest this boat would get us all there a little more efficiently. I think this idea also goes to confidence. This is a key area where I think as managers and co-workers with women that you can make a difference. Women do not have a lack of skill or ability, but they may lack confidence. An example that was quoted in one of the studies I read is that a job description written with stated capabilities and ideal experience will routinely get a lot of different kinds of applicants. Men are going to nominate themselves for that job even if they don't fit all the requirements that are stated, because they have that confidence. Women will hold back They literally will not apply for the job because they don't meet all the criteria. So, you know, it says right here 6 years experience, and I've only got 4.5, so I'm not going to apply for it. So, but she may well have the capability. How could we change this? Anybody have an idea? Is there a way you could restate the job description?
Arrange.
Pardon me?
Arrange.
Arrange? Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea. Maybe talk more about capabilities and not real strong ideals or unrealistic ideals. Because let's face it, we want somebody who can come in and just take over in that job right away. And let's remember about the confidence thing too. Think about how you encourage other people in your life, younger people. We boost their confidence all the time. What do we say to them? You're doing a great job. If somebody else sees that you have confidence in their ability, that helps themselves see their worth, and I think that can help move a person forward. Now I want to reveal, there was a title of the talk that mentioned that there are 3 secrets. I'm going to reveal what I call the 3 secrets to this win-win relationship between men and women in the workplace. They all relate to this concept of men and women thinking and leading differently. They relate to the benefits of thought diversity. First, as managers, we need to acknowledge there is a difference. I think you've already learned something about that. We are not from different planets, as the famous book suggested. We do have different tendencies and styles. Last spring, the Women in Propane Council sponsored a training session at the expo down in Atlanta. The topic was persuasive communication and attracted a group of men and women. These were conventioners interested in professional development. One of the male attendees was asked to participate, to come forward and in a little demonstration at this point. And the guy was begging off, oh no, not me. And the presenter said, well, didn't you come here today to learn how to improve your public speaking? And he says, no, I came here to learn how to talk to my wife. And okay, well, we all talk to men and women every day, and we all know there are differences. When it comes to improving communication or to strengthening our company's leadership, those differences can be advantageous if we first acknowledge they exist. As managers, we want to encourage our employees who have potential. I mentioned that at the top. If those employees are female, you do not have to wait. You can go ahead and promote once you see that potential. You can sponsor a female leader by giving her the chance to step into a leadership role, develop her skills, and contribute to the success of your own company. Earlier today, John encouraged new members, new blood basically, into the New York Propane Gas Association. Encourage those people in your company that you can see would represent you well, as he said, to get on a committee, either here or at NPGA. And what I found is that your company can gain valuable information. Your employee will get networking opportunities that can benefit your business and be exposed to leadership and action. Association involvement can be a great training ground for future leaders. Encourage those differences. It can be a win-win. The third secret is respect. We want to respect those differences. A positive attitude and approach to advancing women in your company needs to come from the top. Your respect of that individual will be sensed and emulated by others in the company. Think right now about who are the most talented people in your organization. Are some of them in jobs that don't use their full potential? Are some of them ready to take a step up in their careers? Think further down the line. Are your daughters, nieces, or granddaughters developing as leaders? Will they be given chances to succeed at a managerial level at your family business? Will one of them be the next president at your company? Once you identify that talent and potential, hold yourself accountable to ensure the opportunity is created. When I thought about coming here, I realized that in some ways I may be preaching to the choir in that you've elected a female president of your association. Lori Irish Jones is a proven leader of Irish Propane. She is exemplary in her contribution to this industry. Last spring, she spoke to the Women in Propane Council in Atlanta, and she told the group how effective mentoring by her father made all the difference in the world to her and her siblings who run the company. When it's her turn to step into the role of CEO of Irish companies, she was well prepared. Bob Irish set a strong example of prudent succession planning. Unlike Mr. Irish, I'm guessing that not all of you have a stable of ready, willing, and capable women in the wing. I understand there are 5 Irish sisters and 4 of them run the Irish companies. As Lori told us down in Atlanta, she says there's a little concern with estrogen balance. Perhaps your contribution, if it's not right there in your own company, in your own family right now, your contribution may lie in the scholarship program the New York PGA has founded. There may be a student who can benefit from your interest and encouragement. Someday, with the financial support of this organization and the influence of individuals like each one of you, those same scholarship recipients may choose to work in this industry we all enjoy. Well, I love it. I don't know if you all love it, but I wrote down enjoy. Sometimes our unconscious biases allow us to shape our behaviors. For example, and I think these are, as I say, they're unconscious. We're not always aware of these biases. If a job requires a woman to travel a lot, an employer may decide preemptively that she's got a young child at home and therefore she may not be interested in the job. Relocating may fall into that same trap. If a manager assumes that a woman with a family may not be in a position to move due to either her child's needs or schools or her spouse's employment. Childbearing and child rearing responsibilities fall to both mothers and fathers. Yet one male CEO in the Harvard study asked, why should women have to be superhuman and have these reputations of they can do it all and make these major sacrifices, and men don't have those kinds of expectations placed on them? Supporting flexible work arrangements also demonstrates respect. Flexible hours we're talking about here. I know some of us will end a meeting early in order to get to a child's sporting event or some other activity like a school play. This consideration certainly may extend to our employees and who are so hardworking, and obviously there's another benefit, which is loyalty and company morale when you do those types of things. Are there any questions here about the 3 secrets? All right, I'm going to go on to the next slide. Here's a woman we all know, and we don't see a hat like this too often anymore. Eleanor Roosevelt is credited with this quote. She said, "A woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water." I'm not saying that the propane industry is hot water. However, I am saying that women are strong. And just like each one of us in this room, We are not superhuman. The Women in Propane Business Council was formed to address many of the topics I've mentioned. The propane industry is now over 100 years old and finds itself today in the need of a reset. For the health of the industry, the leadership of the National Association realized in 2011 that the time had come for a women in industry group. They saw the value in making this a women-friendly industry, and we formed this business council in part to promote the advancement of women, to create an environment that supports women, and to recruit more women to join our terrific industry. The council's membership includes both men and women. I'm going to wrap up today with some specific suggestions as to how you can implement change in your own company. One of these would be to join the Women in Propane Business Council. It doesn't surprise you, does it? Our industry is rightly investing in its future through the development of the Women in Propane Council. We call it Women in Propane WIP or WIP. We've started to call it WIP more and more. Somebody recently said, looking forward to seeing you and the whippers in Portland at the NPGA meeting. So we need leadership development programs, and we need to educate both men and women about subtle gender biases and how they manifest themselves in our businesses. The council is designed as an avenue for companies in our industry to unlock the 3 secrets. WIP programming includes training sessions in areas of professional development that include skills that leaders need. These are presented live at conventions, and then they are supplied online to members who are just unable to travel to all the conferences that we have around the country. Networking, that critical element to a leader's success, is provided through WIP networking events across the country. And it's also provided online through social media. Mentoring is a huge factor in a person's professional development. Our council has identified this as one of our major projects. WIP is now on target to launch a nationwide mentoring program in 2015. Sponsor your employees to become members of WIP. An individual membership is only $25 per year. By becoming a corporate member, you can further demonstrate your support of your employees and invest in a group that is making a difference across the board. A corporate membership allows an unlimited number of your employees to enroll in the council. The fee is $500. We all know that there is a high cost attached to training. I think the council is offering corporations a real value here. There are, of course, or I wouldn't be doing my job, business cards and application forms on the table just outside this door where Barb has all the literature set up. So I would, you can just take one of the little business cards, all the information is on there, and we'd love to hear from you. Now that joining the WIP Council is on your to-do list, what are the other steps that you can take at your company? Start by helping support women at all rungs of the career ladder. So we're talking about those service techs and bobtail drivers, those 3%. Every single woman in your organization. Start right there. Pay women the same as men to make them true equals in the workplace. Put more women in leadership positions to feed the pipeline to the executive team or to your board of directors. And simply supporting efforts to develop more women leaders across the industry. Your support makes a difference. For all of us who depend on a vibrant, diverse economy, this is essential. The action you take can really have an impact. It takes more than lip service to make a change. Talk to your management team about gender balance. Commit to having candid conversations on these sensitive issues. And teach employees across all levels how to talk to each other openly and honestly about these differences. Don't forget what I said earlier. Study after study shows that companies that have more women on their management teams have better returns than companies with fewer women. That's compelling information for our businesses and our industry. I believe it is a challenge for all of us that is worthwhile. I am happy to take any questions at this point, if you have any, and I really appreciate your attention today.
I have a question.
Yes, Lori?
We often talk about the bias of men to women.
Yes.
What about from women to men?
Ah.
Well, there's a lot of men in the room. I had to speak up for you guys.
I think that's good. Yes. Lori has asked if we're talking a lot today about biases against women. Are there biases against men? Or there are biases from women towards men? Did I paraphrase that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I would say yes. I think there are. In our country, really, in the research that I did, there aren't, when we look into the workplace, there really aren't any biases against men at this point. There will be the occasional lawsuit that might come up, and you may see that there's a man who's filed a discrimination case. That's a pretty rare occurrence here. But in Canada, they have made, they've made hiring women and getting a better balance a quota. And what's happening in Canada now, and this demonstrates the danger of quotas, is that men are now there's a bias against men. So if there's two equal employees or candidates in Canada, the women are getting the nod. So it's, we can see we have to be aware of this. So I'm not suggesting quotas. I think another area where there may be a bit of a bias is back to this networking concept, that if women are being excluded from, let's say you're just after work, there's a group of you and you say, let's go out and get a beer. And the women are not included because it's the senior management team, that the women aren't on that team yet. All right, so what does that do? Then the women start to gravitate to each other and they say, well, let's our group go out. And so you're creating separate but unequal networks because the influential people are not necessarily, there's a gender divide there. So it's really then incumbent, the women at the same time are not inviting the guys either. So it will just happen that way. And this is where all of us can say to each other, hey, let's be sure that we invite Mary this time. Hey, let's make sure we invite Bill this time. And it's that type of thing. I think that it's mostly it's awareness. And once you start to become aware of it, then the next thing you know, you're going to have me and Lori having a beer with you. Got a deal. You got a deal. I'll buy. Okay. Yes, Ray.
You talked about joining the WHIP program and that men are welcome. I happen to be a member of the Women in Propane Council, but why would another man want to join it? I mean,
That's a great question. I know I've talked to Joe about this, and I appreciate that. Ray is more than a member. He's on our advisory board council, so our advisory board, and a great supporter. So I appreciate the question. There are good reasons for men to join us. First of all, I already mentioned there's the support that you can demonstrate. All of you in this room have no women, and if you want to support women in your lives, this is one area where the women in your lives will say, good for you, I like it, this is a good thing. There was a guy down in Atlanta who at the same meeting where, in fact, Joe told me that he was there too, we had this, the question was asked at that meeting, why would we were working on persuasive communication was the topic. And the presenter says, so let's take the topic, why would you join the Women in Propane Council? And let's have like, what's your soundbite on why would you join the Women in Propane Council? One guy raised his hand and he said, to meet my wife. He figured if he joined the council, he could meet the future woman in his life. Which is, I have to say, that's not exactly how it's designed. Again, you never know. So there is a program within the council called Friends of WIP, and those are people who might want to join but not necessarily be voting members. So they can get advantage of being informed of what the group is doing without being a voting member. There is direct benefit for all the men in our industry for the training that we're presenting, but some of that will be members only. And in fact, this public speaking program that we put on was a members only, and that's now posted online to our members group, and it is excellent. And some of you who were there can attest to that. So I would also say if you join the council, that helps our council have that diverse balance we're talking about, so that we're ensuring that we are addressing the needs of the industry, and not just the women in the industry, but both men and women. We are an inclusive business council. So, are there any other questions?
I have one more.
Yes, Lauren.
Sorry. You mentioned the mentoring program that you're going to have in 2015.
Yes.
Will that be women and men?
Yes.
As far as mentors and mentees?
Yes. Lori is talking about the mentoring program I mentioned earlier, and this is one that's very exciting. It's actually our members have defined this as something that they desperately want. This is something, there's a need for this. Well, we can't just hatch this. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to educate the industry about what a good mentoring program does. How does the mentee and the mentor both, how do they benefit from this, and how does a program like this operate? There's quite a bit involved. We will be hiring a professional in this field to guide us through this process so that we can craft just the right kind of program. It will be across the nation. It will include men and women. It will, at this point, since it's not totally, it's in its infant stage at this point, it will be, there will be a software program, so you will make these connections online, and you'll be matching up mentors and mentees across the country. So you will, as the mentee, going onto the website, be searching for perhaps you have a specific requirement that you're in marketing and you really want to talk to a marketing guru. And so some of these people of the mentors will identify themselves as marketing. So you might find that to be a good matchup. You might see a matchup being a really good, if somebody that you could meet with locally. So you might choose geographically. You might choose across the country. You might choose someone so far across the country because then you don't want the people at your own company to know who your mentor is. It'll be a confidential arrangement between mentor and mentee. I think I'm using the word mentee correctly. Sounds like I'm thinking of a ray. Isn't there some underwater creature? There are many guidelines that will be used that our expert will help us through this, because there are specific ways that mentors and mentees need to work together. It is not a place for somebody to pick up the phone and say, you can't believe what my boss did today. It's not that kind of relationship. It is one for professional development. So we think there's real value in having professionals of both male and female talking to each other, and the one is gaining from the experience of the other. The other one, let's say the mentor has already maybe turned that curve in his or her experience, and then can give that back to the younger person. I've talked to people I know who have been in mentoring programs, and the one that I know that I'm thinking of told me he mentored someone for 2 years, and he said he's certain he got more out of it than the mentee. So I think there is a real value for people to get involved in this, and clearly we're going to need a very good stable of people who are willing to share their experience and to support someone new in this industry. We talked about, and at lunch today we were talking too about where are the young people coming from? And it's going to be from this type of activity. If we encourage those young people, then you'll have less gray hair and more good dark brown hair coming in. All right. Any other questions? All right. John, was that just about the right length? You asked me earlier how long was I going to talk. No? No? I guess I'm not saying that. Okay. Thank you, Barb, for arranging all this, and thank you, all of you, for having me here today.